The Pokemon games are all about friendship. You journey through the game with your partner, defeating gyms, eventually becoming the champion, and building a lasting bond with your Pokemon, proving that mutual love and respect can conquer anything. Which is why Gen 2 introduced the friendship mechanic for all Pokemon, allowing you to actually quantify how much your Pokemon like you and even evolving some Pokemon based on the fact that they have high friendship. Which is why there's one move in Gen 2 that always struck me as incredibly odd: frustration. Frustration is the only move in the game that is dependent on your opponent actually hating you in order to be strong enough to knock out your opponents. Seemingly the antithesis of everything you're trying to do as a Pokemon trainer. And the game is built to build friendship basically from everything that you do. Winning gym battles, gaining levels, using vitamins, using items in battle to heal your Pokemon, even just walking, all increase your Pokemon's friendship. And there are only a few ways to reduce your friendship, specifically fainting your Pokemon or using herbal medicine, because everybody hates herbal medicine. But this raises a very serious question. Because frustration is included in the game, is it possible to actually beat the game with only this move? Well, today I'm going to test it out and find out if it's possible to beat the entire game of Pokemon Crystal with only frustration as a damage-dealing move. And in order to do that, I'm going to need a very special Pokemon. Enter Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan's stats are great for using this move. It is a normal type Pokemon, so it will get a same type bonus while using frustration, and it has a reasonably high attack stat with 95 to go together with decent defensive stats, speed, and HP. But the more important reason we need to use Kangaskhan has to do with ghosts. You see, frustration as a normal type move typically can't hit ghost Pokemon. There is a workaround, however, in Gen 2 with Foresight, a move that allows both normal and fighting type moves to hit ghosts the same as anything else. And since Kangaskhan can learn Foresight as an egg move in Gen 2, it is the perfect Pokemon to test this out. Now, outside of frustration, I will allow myself to use any move in battle that does not damage my opponents. So things like Leer, possibly Protect later on, or even a move like Curse in late game will all be legal moves in this one as long as they do not damage our opponents. Still, this might be incredibly difficult to actually complete the game using only frustration, and it might even turn out to be borderline impossible. But there's only one way to find out, so let's get into it and test this out. So as we walk into Professor Elm's lab, as usual, we're of course going to pick up our starting Pokemon, Kangaskhan. I'll pick it up in the middle ball to make sure we go up against that Bayleaf rival in the early games, since we know that that is the tougher rival 2 and 3 battle. And with Kangaskhan now on the team, we have the legendary I just can't. Sometimes a feeling that I have as a new parent when my little boy is crying in the middle of the night inconsolably. And of course, our frustrated mama is coming in with the moves Frustration and Foresight added to the moveset in addition to the berry, and we're going to run on 0 DVs just to make this as frustrating as possible. And our first job is just to make sure that we never accidentally use Comet Punch, since that would be technically the end of this challenge. Now, I highly doubt that this is possible on anything close to minimum battles, but as soon as we can get to Goldenrod, we're going to just buy as many herbal medicines as we possibly can and basically try to use those to keep our friendship low enough that Kangaskhan doesn't like us and frustration remains powerful enough, because the real risk is that we get frustration so weak in the late game that we're not actually able to knock anything out with it. Fortunately, you start the game with only 70 friendship on any starting Pokemon. It's 120 if you catch a Pokemon and 200 if you use a friendship ball to catch them, but every other Pokemon in Gen 2 starts with 70 friendship at the start of the game. So as we go into the Rival 1 fight, I actually think this is going to be a pretty strong move, so I think we're going to have an easy time here, but let's find out. So of course, Rival 1 sends out Chikorita, we use Frustration, it does well over half, and 2 hits to knock that Pokemon out. And it's important to note that we don't gain gain friendship from fighting random trainers. We get friendship only from defeating gym leaders, Elite Four members, and the champion and red at the end of the game. Other trainers, we can fight them as much as we want, and they will not increase our friendship. So we're not going to get our first major increase in friendship until we fight against Falconer coming up. We can get access to some herbal medicine before that through the Ruins of Alf. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure to get those items just in case we need them to lower our friendship, because we can see our friendship is already increasing from running around in the overworld. Still, fortunately, Stab Frustration is pretty strong here in the early game, allowing us to easily defeat any of these trainers in front of us. So I honestly expect we might even be able to get through Whitney just with Frustration alone. We're definitely going to have to go Foresight when we get to Morty, but after that, I think it's going to get really, really hard. Chuck is going to be a nightmare with this Pokemon. Jasmine is going to be terrible. So we're probably going to go Rocket Hideout, then to Christ, then back to Chuck and Jasmine if I have to guess. Still, here as we get into the gym, we'll fight Honest Abe, where Frustration is going to do not quite half to the Spearow, but still plenty, and we get a critical hit the second turn to knock that Pokemon out. And now we do get to learn Leer, giving us another move that we can use in battle. We could reduce our opponent's defense since Leer is not a damaging move. Still, I think we can just go into the God Rod with the Frustrations and get the easy victory, so let's make our way straight to Falconer. But before we do, we can see that our friendship has increased quite a bit due to leveling up in the gym, so I'm gonna go to the Ruins of Alf and just make sure that I get that energy powder first. So here, in addition to a berry and poison cure berry, we can get the energy powder and the heal powder that are available here in the Ruins of Alf, and now make our way back over to Falconer. So if we have some struggles here, we could in theory just take a little bit of damage, heal up with an energy powder, and then use that in order to slightly boost the damage of our Frustration. But let's see how this goes. So Falconer attempt number 1, I'm just going to go for Frustration on the first Pidgey. It's an easy 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. Out next is Pidgeotto, so I'm going to go Leer once just to hopefully increase the damage that we do with Frustration. We're in a speed tie here, and with the 1 Leer, Frustration is a 2-hitter on that Pokemon as well. So just like that, we do get the Zephyr badge, but we get a big bump in our friendship up to 95. Considering we started at 70, that's a pretty big increase in friendship and reduction in the power of our move Frustration. And again, leveling up just increases our friendship, so I'm going to try to avoid leveling up as much as possible, so we're going to stay as close to minimum battles as we can as we go through this one, though at some point I'm sure that it's simply not going to be enough on minimum battles, and we're going to have to start grinding levels and hopefully offsetting it with all of our herbal medicine to keep from just grinding here for absolute eternity. And honestly, we kind of want to get poisoned so that we can walk around outside and faint, because you lose 5 times more friendship by fainting outside of battle than you do fainting in battle. So really, poison is the ideal situation for us as we go into the Rocket Hideout. If I get poisoned by anything here and still manage to win the fight, I'm just going to walk around until I faint. Now, fortunately, because our level is now higher than our opponents and Frustration is the same type move, even with the higher friendship, we're still doing decent damage to these opponents and pretty easily knocking them out. Now, of course, the final Jamesy Proton could poison us with Smog. The problem is we get a free heal from Kurt, so we won't get a chance to actually faint our Pokemon based on this, but I'm not going to heal. I'm going to try to just go in as low health as possible, and if I faint, hey, I'll lose friendship, so that's perfectly fine, and otherwise we'll just sit here and spam our Frustration. Still, that is an incredibly easy victory to get through Jamesy Proton, and we're ready to go take on rival number 2 and the gym leader Bugsy. I'm actually going to take on rival number 2 first here, given the fact that we can use Foresight in order to hit the Ghastly, and maybe it turns out to be enough, but if it's not, we're perfectly fine with fainting here. So first up, of course, we will use Foresight against this Ghastly, And now Frustration can hit this Pokemon. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, and now he's using Spite on Frustration, which we don't like. Still, we do manage to knock that Pokemon out as the Zubat comes out next, and we can sit here and spam 3 Frustrations to knock that Pokemon out. At level 13, normally we could learn Bite, but this is a useless move for us, so we're simply going to skip it, leading to the Bayleaf. Now on Bayleaf, I'm going to Leer once to lower its defense, and now go into Frustration, which appears to be a 3-hit KO. It Razor Leafs me down, but that's perfectly fine. So I do think that this fight is winnable at our current level, but I'm just going to grind it out until we actually manage to get through. So once again, back to the Bayleaf, we'll once again give it a Leer. He goes Reflect, so I'm going to give a second Leer in that case. Then he gets a critical hit Razor Leaf, and we can see the Reflect just reduces the damage so much that we had no chance to get through there. Back to Bayleaf again, we were confused this time, but we get a nice critical hit Frustration turn 1 as he goes Poison Powder. I'm just going all in on attack here. He gets the critical hit Razor Leaf. We've got him all the way down to 1 HP. He gets us to 1 HP, but that allows us to finally win, and we're poisoned. So as we get to level 15 here, we have defeated rival number 2, and I'm just going to run around until I faint. So yes, we lose a lot of money by doing that, but it did reduce our friendship, which should in theory help us to defeat more trainers. And here against opponents like the Spinarak that just use Poison Sting, I'm going to intentionally just spam Leer until I get poisoned so that I can repeat the same thing of just fainting outside of battle. And since I'm no longer on minimum battles, I'm just going to fight whatever I can find here in the gym, since hey, gaining levels, it's not going to affect us that much in the end, I don't think. So fortunately we do faint, allowing us to slightly reduce our friendship as we get ready to go into the Bugsy battle. So first up, of course, with Bugsy, we've got the Metapod. I'm just going to go all in on the Frustration. Easy 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. Kakuna's out next. I'm not going to sit here and wait for this Pokemon to poison me because I don't know how we're going to do against the Scyther. So I'm just going to go Frustration twice to take that one down as well. Now on Scyther, I'm going to Leer once. In fact, Leer twice as he misses Fury Cutter. And now we will go into the Frustration, and it's going to be an easy 2-hitter to knock that Pokemon out. The same type attack bonus plus our good attack stat is definitely helping us here. If we had done something like a Hoot with the same strategy, it probably would have been terrible, but we're pretty close to minimum battles at this point. Honestly, we could have gotten through this whole section on minimum battles, I think, but we will take what we've got for now because we know the real challenge is still upcoming. Now, it's also worth noting that because of the fact that we're going to be losing a lot of money to fainting in this one, I'm just going to pick up items like crazy to sell for money when it comes time to actually buy our herbal medicine. I'm also not going to go for attract strats in this. I don't think that's a legitimate way to get through, in my opinion. And the same is true for Double Team. I'm not going to use that in the late game just to try to luck my way through this one. We're going to use TMs like Curse that will increase our stats, or maybe Rest in order to heal, but those are the only TMs that I'm going to use. But now that we reach Goldenrod, we finally have access to the herbal medicine shop. So I'm going to come into the underground and fight the 2 trainers that are available here. Frustration should pretty much do the job on these ones. And now we can talk to the old woman. And Energy Root heals a lot more than Energy Powder, so I'm going to tend towards Energy Root in this one. It also has a much bigger effect on Frustration. So just like that, we've got 19 Energy Powders in the bag, as well as 3 Energy Roots, so that we can hopefully reduce our friendship quite a bit as we continue. So I'm going to avoid trips back to the Pokemon Center wherever I can, and instead heal with the Energy Powder. But with that, let's make our way into Whitney's gym and just see how we do against these trainers. So we easily get to Whitney, and let's just see how we do against her actual team. Frustration is doing enough damage to be a 3-hit KO against the first Clefairy. We get hit by Swagger from Metronome. Still, we managed to knock it out in 2 hits. Miltank is out next. I'm actually going to go for a Leer on this Pokemon as we snap out of Confusion. Now Frustration looks to be a 2-hit KO, so even though rollout was building up, Swagger boosting our attack plus the fact that we were able to use a Leer there was enough to get a very easy win against the gym leader. Now we get a level up and learn Tail Whip. Tail Whip is actually redundant with Leer, but we're going to still learn it over Comet Punch. This is just to make sure we have no other damage dealing moves on the moveset as we move forward. And with that gym done, we actually get a badge boost in normal type moves. So Frustration is just a little bit stronger than it otherwise would be. We can also also technically get access to the pink bow at this point in order to further increase our damage output. And that could be really important as we continue on. And we will simply run away from Sudowoodo and make our way back through this section. We can obviously get the TM for Rock Smash there, adding just another TM that we can sell later on for money. So now in Ekritique, let's take on the Kimono Girls and then make our way to Rival 3 and just see how this section goes. And with the Kimono Girls easily destroyed, it's time to take on Rival 3. We can't go to Morty's gym until we get through this fight, since this is Pokemon Crystal version, but I'm making sure to heal every chance I get with the energy powder. Still, it's got us up to 120 friendship at this point, so slightly below half of the full potential friendship, but our move is getting weaker as we continue on. Now here against the rival, we have to lead off with Foresight turn 1, so we're definitely going to get cursed in this. And that's in some ways kind of good, because sure, we knock Haunter out next comes the Magnemite, which resists our move, but Curse will help us actually faint more, so we may gain some extra power in frustration by simply losing this fight over and over again. And sure enough, Magnemite is too much for us to take down, but I think this is a situation where rather than going and fighting more battles, the best thing to do is just to sit here and grind against the rival and let him knock me out over and over again, unless I somehow manage to get the luck to get through. And this gives a really good foreshadowing on what we're looking at with Jasmine, because if we're struggling with a Magnemite here, we're really going to struggle as we get further into this one. This time we do manage to get through Magnemite, giving us our first look at Zubat, which is a 2-hit KO, and Curse plus Bite is enough to knock us out. Still, maybe it's worthwhile to just fight against some other trainers just so that we can take damage and then heal with the energy powder as a way to further reduce the amount of friendship that we have. So here I just went ahead and completed the lighthouse, making our way up to Jasmine. We can get an extra rare candy up here, and of course we were able to reduce our friendship a fair bit by using a lot of energy powder. So at this level, Frustration is a 3-hit KO on Magnemite even without using Leer or Tail Whip, so we should have pretty decent chances of getting through that Pokemon. So I think just one Tail Whip will be enough to make this a 2-hit KO and possibly a 1-hit KO range with a critical hit. So we do manage to get through that Pokemon on decent health. Now to the Zubat, which is a 1-hit KO, and now we've made it to Bayleaf. Let's see the range. It's a 3-hitter with Frustration, but then it goes Reflect. So without a critical hit, we're simply not getting through here. He misses a Growl though, and we get the crit, allowing us to win. So we do in fact manage to beat rival number 3 at level 25. I think that was incredibly lucky. I think if he had actually used a damage dealing move rather than Growl on that last one, and if of course we didn't get the crit, we were gonna lose that, but hey, we'll take the victory. Rival 3 punting on an easy win. But now we have to get into Morty's gym, where we have to use Foresight on every single Pokemon here and then hope that we still have enough health afterwards to knock things out. This first guy has so many Ghastlies that if he just goes Curse, I think we're gonna lose because we won't have enough turns. So fortunately he goes Mean Look with the first Ghastly, and Frustration is strong enough to one-shot provided we can land the Foresight on them. And as long as he just keeps spamming Mean Look, that's really all that we need to get this one to go. And I wonder if it's just because he thinks that his Ghost type moves aren't effective against us that he's just using Mean Look, but regardless, we do manage to get through that first trainer and we can move on in the gym. This third trainer does go ahead and use Curse on us though, so we're going to have to try to make our way through his next 2 Pokemon with Frustration. Fortunately, we get the one-shot there on the Haunter, and now that should be enough to allow us to actually get through this fight. So we'll quickly heal with Energy Powder. We're sitting at 118 friendship as we go into the Morty fight. Let's see if we can get this to go. So attempt number 1 on Morty, the Ghastly, we're just going to use Foresight. It goes Curse. Now Frustration will knock that Pokemon out. Next is the Haunter. It's just going to go Hypnosis, I think. It misses, and we are not able to get the one-hitter on that Pokemon. Still, we knock it out in 2, so that brings us to Gengar, where we once again go Foresight. It goes Hypnosis and hits, and that's going to be enough to knock us out on the first attempt. Now, we can go mint berry here in order to recover from the hypnosis at least once in this battle and then just hope he misses the other ones. But otherwise, I think that's all we can do. Morty, because of the patch that I'm using, will not use Mean Look against me. He's only going to use Curse with that first Pokemon or Spite. And then it's about dodging hypnosises. If we ever get a run where we don't get Cursed though, I think we've got this. So back to Gengar again. Once again, it hits the hypnosis though, and that's all she wrote for that one. And we ended up using the mint berry on that one, so I guess we're just gonna sit here and reset, hoping that we don't get put to sleep since we're running with no items in battle. So this time we finally get one where he uses Spite with the Ghastly instead of Curse, so we're able to one-shot that Pokemon without the Curse being on. Here, that means that the Haunter will use Curse instead, so we can knock that Pokemon out nice and easy, and we're on full health to the Gengar. It misses the first hypnosis as we go for Frustration and did about half. It misses a second hypnosis, so we do knock that Pokemon out. We've made it to the final Haunter where we go for the Foresight, and now Frustration is going to be a 2-hit KO on this one. We just barely survive with 3 HP at level 29, allowing us to get through. We finally leveled up to level 30 as we defeated Morty. So that was rough. That was a very frustrating battle, but we did manage to find a way through it, so I guess we're feeling okay going into the next section. Still, certainly not ideal. So now we have to decide what to do, and I'm actually going to go to Chuck's gym, because if we can just get knocked out a bunch of times there, we'll just reduce our friendship and increase the power of frustration quite a bit, and I think we'll get through this gym eventually. So if we can do that, then we also get access to Fly, and we can get the secret potion while we're down here. I think it's a perfectly reasonable strategy. So I'm just going to box all of my other Pokemon to make sure that I'm able to feint efficiently and hopefully not have too many situations where, you know, I have to put out other Pokemon in order to actually get through the fight. So let's just grind this out and see inside of the gym. So first off, we have the back-to-back black belt fights against Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. We do over half to the Hitmonlee, so it's going to be a 2-hit KO, and we outspeed there, so we're going to get the victory on the first guy every time. Now let's see how we do against Hitmonchan. Of course, it doesn't have any fighting type moves, and we did about half with the first Frustration, but it turns out to be a 3-hit KO to get through that one. Still, we can spam a couple of energy powders there and move on in the gym. And now, normally we could learn Rage, which I would love to use because I'm going to Rage by the end of this one, but unfortunately, we cannot learn this move. Now, unfortunately, we do have to take out a second Pokemon in order to use Strength here in the gym, so we're not going to be able to feint very efficiently. We're going to have to feint a Machop as well to get through these fights, but let's just see if it's enough. Still, we have made it to Chuck. We can use an energy powder in order to reduce our friendship a little bit, and let's just see if we can beat the fighting type gym leader, or will he destroy us and allow us to hopefully accumulate a little bit of hatred with our Kangaskhan. Primeape is out first, of course. We're gonna go Frustration and do about half. We get a super effective Karate Chop, but we knock it out in 2. Poliwrath is out next, and this looks to be like a 4-hit KO. I'm actually going to use a Tail Whip here just to make sure I get the 4-hit range, and he is missing Dynamic Punch here. Once he finally hits though, we do get KO'd, and there's nothing that we can do about that. We have to hope now that he's able to knock us out with our Machop. Sure enough, he is, so we are able to feint and go back and try him again. Still, if he just misses enough Dynamic Punches, I think we can win this even at our current level. Still, I'll give him 1 Leer to start on all of these just to see if that gets us a better range or not. So of course, Dynamic Punch can just one-shot us, but we can see that with 1 Leer on, this appears to be a 3-hit KO now on the Poliwrath. So really, as long as we can just get the luck to get a couple of Dynamic Punch misses and a Leer on, we should be able to eventually win this fight. This time he uses things like Mind Reader and Hypnosis that misses, and without a Leer from the first Primeape, we actually survived the Dynamic Punch. Now we are confused though. Fortunately, we still hit the Poliwrath, so at level 33 we are able to defeat Chuck with our I Just Can't. So we're up to 11 optional battles at this point. It says 2 TMs, but that is of course the Frustration and the Foresight that we added on at the start of the game to our Pokemon. And with that, we can actually take a quick trip back to Goldenrod in order to just buy more herbs. And I really think we need to go go energy root from here on out just because it reduces friendship significantly more than the energy powder. But let's see how much money we can actually get from selling all these items. Now I'll also get the King's Rock here just because who knows, maybe some lucky flinches in the right spot could help us. And we'll just pick up Rain Dance while we're down here as well. Technically we could learn it if we ever need to manipulate weather for some reason, but really I think this item's just going to get sold for money so that we can hopefully buy even more herbs. But with that, let's make our way to the rocket hideout and price, because I think Jasmine is just going to be an absolute nightmare grind here. And with Red Gyarados in tow, of course, we can come and talk to Lancey Boy all about going to take on the rockets. And we just sold a ton of items in order to get a bunch more energy root, so hopefully this will also give us another opportunity to further lower our friendship. So we very easily make it to the rocket executive in here, where frustration is doing really good damage at this point. And the fact that Raticate just damaged us is actually a good thing, because that means that we're going to be able to heal after this battle with an herb and therefore actually reduce our friendship slightly. And at this point, it's the energy root that's really putting in some work. So just like that, we can make it to the final battle of this section, where frustration is not a one-hit KO on this Arbok, but still it's going to be a two-hitter, easy victory. Gloom comes out next. We can just stick with frustration and get the one-hitter as we get to level 36, and then Murkrow can get more of the same one-hit KO from frustration. And now, since this isn't a minimum battles run, I'm just going to go ahead and fight against all of these electrodes. We don't actually have to catch them, and ideally they damage us so that we can use more herbal medicine. But frustration at this point is so strong that it's just a one-hit KO on all of them, so we easily get through, and we have completed the rocket hideout. So with that, let's just make our way straight into Price's gym and just see if we can beat the gym leader at our current level. And in most runs, I might say, well, we should maybe hold off because maybe we could fight these trainers for extra experience. But I think our best strategy when we get to Jasmine is just going to be to blackout grind there, repeatedly getting knocked out so that we can just lose friendship as we're leveling up. Or granted, we could go fight some rando trainers, just take a little bit of damage and then heal up with the herbal medicine in order to reduce our friendship as well. But first up, let's just take on Price. Let's see how he goes. So Seal is out first, of course. We're going frustration. It's not a one-hit KO, it's a two-hitter, so we'll simply knock it out on the next turn. Dugong comes out. This is looking to be a two-hit KO, maybe. It's kind of a range here. We do get the range on that one, though. We level up and we get to learn Endure. I'm just going to learn this move over Tail Whip, since Tail Whip and Leer are basically identical, and that way, maybe in some situation, we can just barely survive to knock out an opponent or something. Here, it appears to be a three-hit KO on Piloswine. He does hit the Blizzard with a critical hit, but it's nowhere near enough. He heals there, but a critical hit of our own means that we simply knock him out on the next turn. Price was never in question. Plus, that lets us use an energy root to further reduce our friendship, so we're perfectly fine with that result. But now, before we lose any money grinding against Jasmine, let's go make sure that we get as many energy roots as we possibly can. And here I'm just going to deposit all of my Pokemon before going into the gym, because I think it's highly likely that we're going to struggle here. So let's just make sure that we don't have any other Pokemon in our party. So we'll deliver the secret potion, and Jasmine is now back to her gym for us to take on. Now I'm actually going to give the King's Rock here for some flinching chances, just because maybe, just maybe, that is enough to get us through this gym. So first attempt against Jasmine, let's just see what kind of ranges we're currently getting. Frustration is not even a two-hit KO on the first Magnemite unless that was a range, and sure enough, it survives on 1 HP. So it's possible that maybe with perfect ranges we could get a two-hitter on these Magnemites, but it's still going to be incredibly tough to get through at our current level. Still, as long as we're knocking out at least one of them, I think we're perfectly fine to just grind here. And actually on the second attempt, we do get our first shot at Steelix here. Now I expect with that massive 150 defense stat that we're basically going to do nothing with frustration, but let's just see. And sure enough, we did 10 damage. So this would be an 11 hit KO at our current level on the this Pokemon. So I think going for some Leers is the ideal strategy, and sure enough, we're simply not going to survive. And now here the issue seems to be that we're gaining friendship from fighting the gym leader, so blackout grinding against a gym leader is not actually a very good strategy here. We're going to be better off going to fight randos or even wild Pokemon, taking damage, and then using our energy root in order to reduce our friendship. So I'm going to fight a bunch of trainers, but just making sure to take at least a little damage from each of them so that then I can use the energy root after that. And after a lot of battles where we just intentionally took a little damage and then used energy root, we're down to having only 5 friendship with our Kangaskhan. So this is about as strong as we can possibly get at this point. Let's see if it's enough now on Jasmine to at least maybe 2-shot against those Magnemites. So here we're going to simply go for frustration on the first Magnemite. It's nearly a one-hitter on that Pokemon. This could be a situation where instead of the King's Rock, maybe what we actually need to have is the Pink Bow. So once again, we get back to Steelix and it simply knocks us out, but I'm going to test this out. Let's see what a Pink Bow does for us in this one. Of course, the Pink Bow is available on Tuesdays over right next to New Bark Town. So with that, I think we might be able to deal enough damage to even get a one-hit KO on these Magnemites now, but let's just see. And it's still just not quite enough. They do survive. However, if we could manage to get a critical hit, it would obviously be a one-hit KO on these Magnemites at this point. And it's honestly fairly close to getting the KO there. So that could all just be a matter of ranges, honestly. So that makes me think maybe the best bet is just to have a paralyzed Cure Berry just to more reliably get to that Steelix. So this time we get to Steelix on full health. Let's see what Frustration does now. It did about 20 damage, making this a 6-hit KO. And let's just see if we leer at this Pokemon a couple times, reducing its defense. We should be doing significantly more damage. She will Hyper Potion here, but she just barely manages to knock us out when we had her down on low red health. And of course, a critical hit would have won that fight. Still, fighting against Jasmine is causing us to gain friendship. So at some point, we're going to have to go back and lose friendship again in order to make this one reasonable. And after a fair bit of grinding there, we still haven't managed to get through, but we've gained so much friendship that the power of frustration is going down a lot. So we're going to go back out to fight more random trainers and hopefully just take a little bit of damage, heal up with the energy root, and that way we can reduce our friendship. And we only really need to take like 1 or 2 damage in these fights. So a single poison sting from those tentacles, for example, is perfectly fine. Then energy root, and we reduce our friendship. And the trainers down around the Whirl Islands allow us to get enough healing with the energy root that we're actually able to get down to 0 friendship. So for the first time, we actually have a maximum power frustration, though we are just about to level up here, so we will gain a little bit of friendship back once we knock out one of Jasmine's Pokemon. And now walking back, we gained 1 friendship, but let's just see how we do against Jasmine with essentially a max power frustration here. Here at this point, the frustration is enough to one-shot the Magnemite straight up. We don't have any Pink Bow on or anything as we get to level 44. Next Magnemite also goes down in a single hit. So now it's all about this Steelix. So I'm going to go for the Leers first on this Pokemon. Of course, Iron Tail is going to do massive damage, but I think this is the only way to get through this. And sure enough, she knocks us out. As long as we're able to one-shot those first 2 Magnemites, I think we have a reasonable chance here. And this is where I'm actually going to go back to the King's Rock, giving us a chance to maybe get some flinches on that Steelix. And here we've got this Steelix in a 3-hit KO range as she goes for the Hyper Potion after 2 Leers, and Iron Tail's not enough. So at level 44, we do manage to beat Jasmine with only frustration as a damage dealing move. But it came down to basically getting to the point where we had just maximum hatred from our Pokemon. But in an incredibly frustrating set of events, I stopped the game one time after Jasmine to go eat some dinner, came back, played for another hour, only to find that I hadn't recorded any of the footage. So I have replayed the game. Up to this point, my stats are just ever so slightly different, but basically that's just a matter of which optional battles I took, knowing what I know now, and we are ready to continue the game. And I honestly don't expect anything to be too difficult built in this rocket section, we should pretty much just destroy these guys. But just note that the game time will be a little bit off of what it was before, and stats also slightly different due to different amounts of stat experience. Still, the only real issue we have in this section is the fact that we have so little PP in our move Frustration, just given that opponents' teams are getting bigger and bigger. But basically, we can just sit here and spam this move over and over again, occasionally let them hit us once so that we can heal up with an energy root, and just keep our friendship basically locked at 0 as we go into this. And at this point in the game, we can easily have so much money that we can just buy so many energy roots that we basically will never run out in this entire challenge. So interestingly, at least in my opinion, is the fact that it's so easy to keep your Pokemon's friendship at 0 and just have them absolutely hate you. My honest worry was that we wouldn't be able to keep our friendship low enough to keep Frustration strong in the mid to late game, but basically we're able to do it just fine because we're gathering so much money. So let's take on rival number 4. Let's just see how he goes here in the underground. Of course, we're just going to go for Frustration on Golbat, which is an easy one-hit KO. Magnemite is out next, but at this level, we're simply destroying that Pokemon. Haunter comes out, we're going to go for Foresight, of course, and then follow up with Frustration after it curses. That's an easy one-hitter. Sneasel's out next, another easy one-hit KO. And finally, Meganium. I don't think it's a one-hitter, but we actually do get the one-hit KO, so very nice. Easy victory there. And fortunately, the rival does not dramatically boost the Pokemon's friendship. That's only Gym Leader's Elite Four members, Blue and Red. That's it. So everything else, we can basically fight as much as we want without gaining too much friendship other than level ups. And as we make it to the top of the radio tower, the final 2 executives are so under-leveled relative to us right now that we can simply spam the Frustration and get the very easy victories on these teams. So really, I think I'm just gonna allow myself to take a little damage so I can use an energy root just so that I can go into Claire's gym basically with max power, and let's just see how her gym actually goes. And now in the ice path, we actually get access to a very, very important TM, and that is, of course, rest. We're not going to use it right away, but we will end up using that later on, I think, because not only does it give us the ability to heal in battle, but by combining it with Endure, we can actually guarantee that we will survive in certain cases and be able to fully heal up. So rest is just a super important move in this run, I think, because there are going to be some spots where we need to heal in battle, especially status, and sleep and rest gives us that ability to get rid of status as well as recovering our HP. So now in the gym, we're simply going to one-shot all these rando trainers. I don't expect any issues with them, so let's make our way straight to Claire herself. So Claire attempt number 1, of course, the Dragonair isn't really an issue. We just one-shot the first one. The second one is going to go down as well. We get to level 51 off of that, and we one-shot the third Dragonair. So now the question is just how do we do against Kingdra? We are 11 levels higher, but it's going to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. Still, once she gets in a healing loop, it's a guaranteed victory on the first attempt. After Jasmine, Claire is really nothing to worry about with our Kangaskhan. Now, I find it kind of hilarious because now we have to go into the Dragon's Den and we're going to have to answer a bunch of questions about how much we love Pokemon and they're our friends and that we deserve to get this badge. It's going to turn out that these old guys really aren't a very good judge of character. Of course, she expected us to fail knowing that our Pokemon only used frustration in battle against her, but these old guys have overridden Claire and demanded that she give us our badge. And with that, we're ready to move on to the Pokemon League. So as we step into Kanto for the first time, we'll just simply pick up the items on the way. There aren't really that many trainers to fight on our way to the Pokemon League outside of Rival 5, and I don't expect them to be a huge challenge here. I mean, we made really quick work of Rival number 4, and we're just massively over-leveled relative to our opponents. Still, I will pick up items just in case we need them in this section, and if I do run into a trainer like this one who is technically skippable, but you have to get the right timing RNG on her, we'll simply take those fights so that we can get to the league, hopefully with 0 friendship as we go into Will. Now, the funny thing is that this lady right here, she usually checks your friendship to determine whether or not to give you Sandstorm, but because we don't have any friendship with our Pokemon, she refuses to give us the TM. I never really realized that there were so many friendship checks in the game, but actually there are multiple TMs that you can't get without being good friends with your Pokemon. But now going into the Rival 5 fight, we have just a little bit of friendship, so I'm going to intentionally fight this guy right here just to take a little damage and use an energy root, and that way we should be able to get there with a stronger frustration. I'm not sure if it will matter, but he does have a Magneton, so we just want to be a little bit careful here. And in fact, I took one more battle just to make sure that my friendship is all the way down at 0, and with that, let's get into the rival battle and see how he goes. So Rival 5 attempt number 1, I'm just going to go Frustration on the Sneasel. That's an easy one-hit KO. Golbat comes out second. That should be another easy one-hitter. Next is Magneton. This is the Pokemon I'm most worried about, and this is a 2-hitter, but it misses the Thunder Wave. So we're on full health to the Haunter. We'll go Foresight. It's of course going to use Curse against us, but we'll just destroy it on the next turn. Then Kadabra, I don't think can survive a single Frustration. It cannot. And Meganium's probably a 1 or 2 hit KO. It's a 2-hitter here, but Razor Leaf doesn't do enough. Even with Curse, we easily get through that fight. So now we are entering the Indigo Plateau, and we have a massive amount of money. And this was the case in my previous run that I lost the footage to as well. You come here with so much money in your bag that honestly, the best thing that I could think to do is simply spend it all on buying a bunch of items, because I'm not sure if I'm going to have to save and reset or if I'm going to have to blackout grind here. I just want to make sure that I don't lose this money. It's no longer Sunday, so I can't go buy a bunch of energy roots right now. So instead, what I can do is buy all of these items, and if I do end up needing more energy root later on, I can simply sell those items for money without losing all of my money as I go through the league. But let's just see how this actually goes. I'm going to go in at my current level with my current moveset, and let's see if we can manage to beat Willy Boy. So Will leads off with his Xatu. Frustration is an easy one-hit KO as we get to level 54. Jinx is out next, another easy one-shot. Exeggutor. This Pokemon is pretty bulky. It turns out to be a 2-hitter as we get hit by Psychic. Still, that's perfectly fine with me because I want a little bit of damage so that I can use my energy root after this. Here, the Slowbro is going for Curse, but it's just a 2-hitter, and that leaves only the final Xatu, which gets one shot. And just like that, our Kangaskhan has easily made it past the first Elite Four member. Now, we are going to gain friendship every single time we battle one of these trainers, so we do have to be careful. We don't necessarily want to blackout grind here unless we're also intentionally taking damage to use energy roots, because otherwise our friendship will increase really fast. Still, we got through the first trainer. Let's take on Koga. Fortress is the Pokemon that I'm most worried about here, but let's see what the ranges actually look like. Of course, he leads off with Ariados. We are faster, and a single Frustration will destroy that Pokemon. Venomoth is out next. It's more of the same. We get to level 55 as Fortress comes out, and let's see the range here. This appears to be a 4-hit KO as it goes for Spikes. So I'm going to set up a few Leers here, hoping that we can end up dealing enough damage to knock this Pokemon out. So with 4 Leers, we are able to knock it out on the next hit. Muck comes out next. It just barely survives, but it's a 2-hitter to knock that Pokemon out. And now Crobat is just a little bit slower than us, so we can actually hit it. It goes for Double Team. He full restores, but as long as we don't miss, we will knock this Pokemon out. The Wing Attack does decent damage, but it's not enough. Even with this Double Team, we managed to knock out Koga. So that brings us to the real potential problem of this section, which is Bruno. The entire issue here, of course, is that he is the fighting type trainer, but he also ends up with an Onix that will resist our move. So depending on how much damage we have as we go into that last Pokemon, this could be a cakewalk or it could be a nightmare. We're just gonna have to see. So Bruno leads off with his Hitmontop. Frustration is enough to one-shot that Pokemon. Hitmonlee is also slower than us, so we can knock it out in a single hit. So next is Hitmonchan, and this Pokemon's only going to use Mach Punch, which does decent damage, but we knock it out. And now Machamp. Cross Chop is the scary looking move right here, and Machamp is pretty bulky, so here we use Frustration, but it does not get the one-hit KO. Cross Chop does massive damage, and then he goes into a max potion. So we will knock out the Machamp here. It's not really an issue of getting through that Pokemon as long as he doesn't crit, but now we have to deal with Onix. And the question is, how much damage do we do? Here, his Earthquake did about 26 damage to us, and our Frustration did about 36 damage to him. That puts him in a 3-hit KO range, so if we crit here, we will win. Otherwise, he's gonna knock us out on this turn. We do not get the crit, and we go down, so unfortunately, we were not able to beat Bruno. However, I do think there's a strategy for this fight at our current level. What we're going to do is we're going to learn the TM for Rest. Foresight isn't really necessary anymore. There are no more ghosts that we have to fight in this run, so I'm simply going to forget Foresight in order to learn Rest. And it's not like the Onix is doing that much damage to us, so I'm pretty sure that we can simply rest on the Onix and get the win. Let's test it out. And of course, I realized at this point that I made a mistake. In the original run, what I had done is I had kept Foresight and forgotten Endure in order to learn Rest there. I was forgetting about Karen's Gengar. Yes, you still need Foresight. You forget Endure. That move is useless for our purposes at least. So yeah, slight mistake there. Slight fixing of the run. But instead, just make sure you have Frustration, Leer, Rest, and Foresight. Obviously, my brain is fried after having done this entire section before and coming back and doing it again. So once again, we get back to the Machamp. It's the same situation as before. He goes Cross Chop. This time a critical hit though, so we simply get knocked out before we get to the Onix. Next attempt, we critical hit the Machamp though, allowing us to simply knock it out in a single hit, and that brings out the Onix with us on full health as it comes out. So here, Sandstorm and Earthquake are not going to do enough, so we simply knock that Pokemon out, and we have made it through Bruno. So a single critical hit is good enough there, or the Rest strategy can work as well. But now it is time for Karen, and we have to see if we can beat her at our current level. The issue is that Gengar, because it's definitely going to curse us. So there's not a whole lot that we can do in that case. So of course she leads off with Umbreon. We really don't want to get confused or sand attacked. Of course she has to sand attack us. Still, we knock it out. Vileplume comes out next. It misses the Stun Spore, so we do manage to knock it out after one miss. Now we do need Foresight on the Gengar. We do manage to hit, and Frustration knocks that Pokemon out. Murkrow is out next. We miss. We get Feint attacked and take some purse damage, but it goes down in a single hit. And now Houndoom, we just need to not miss too many times. That is a one-hit KO on that Pokemon. So as we get to level 57, we have managed to defeat the entire Elite Four at our current level with our Kangaskhan. We are pinned at exactly 0 friendship as we go into the final battle against Lance, and now we just have to find out if we can actually manage to win. So Lance is going to lead off with his Gyarados that basically just loves to use the move Rain Dance. We're really hoping that we get some flinches with the King's Rock here. We don't get it that time, so it's a 2-hit KO. Out comes the first Dragonite. Here it misses Thunder Wave, allowing us to knock it out in 2 hits. Dragonite number 2 comes out. Here it does hit the Thunder Wave and then Hyper Beams us, and this is a spot to rest. We can see that the Hyper Beam doesn't do that much damage, and of course it has to recharge after using the move, which allows us to wake up and knock that Pokemon out. Aerodactyl's out next, and we do about half with Frustration, and it misses a Hyper Beam, so we knock it out nice and easy. Charizard comes out, and we get the 1-hit KO on that Pokemon, bringing the final Dragonite. We have 3 Frustrations to knock this Pokemon out. It uses Safeguard, and that is not enough. Lance goes down, and we have defeated the entire Johto League with only a Kangaskhan using Frustration in battle. Now granted, we used Leer in order to affect ranges, we had to use Foresight in order to be able to hit Ghost-type Pokemon, but honestly, considering that we never even ended up using the sleep strats there except at the very end on Lance, and technically it was a strat on Bruno, we just didn't end up using it, still, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. Frustration is pretty OP, and I mean, we were at level 58, but we easily could have just grinded more levels if this was not enough. Eventually, you would beat the entire league with only Frustration, which is kind of ridiculous. I thought the whole point of the game was for you to become friends with your Pokemon, and yet they've actually built in enough mechanics to make it possible for your Pokemon to actually hate you. But now, of course, we know there is still a final boss in the game. We have to get to Red with his team that's all 70 plus, and that fight might actually be tough. We're gonna have some rare candies at the end, but I'm not sure how we're actually gonna do or if we're gonna have to massively overlevel just to be able to beat that final trainer. Still, I have a ton of energy root in the bag, so I'm not too worried about getting extra items as I go to Kanto, because even if we had to use one energy root after every single level up, we would still not run out. So this should be perfectly fine, but let's just see how well we do against the Johto gym leaders. Brock could be a little bit hard, and Blue himself tends to be a massive difficulty spike, but outside of that, I think it's just those two and Red that really pose any challenge for this Pokemon. Red just might be insurmountable. But first things first, I think there's nothing better than to come to the trash man himself. Let's just beat up on Lieutenant Surge. Of course, he leads off with the Raichu, which is going to be an easy one-hit KO. Electrode is out next, another easy one-hitter. Next, he's got the Magneton. This is probably a two-hit KO on this Pokemon, but he goes for Double Team and then Zap Cannon, getting the paralysis. Still, if we can manage to hit him, he'll simply go down. And with a little damage on, I don't think we need to do anything special against Electrode or Electabuzz. Just go for the Frustration, and they are easy one-hit KOs. So that is one Kanto gym leader down, and I'm just going to take them on as I come to them. So next, let's just go up and beat up on Sabrina. And here in Kanto, for now at least, I don't think we need to take on any random trainers. We may add them on when we get to the harder gym leaders, but for now, we're honestly just better off fighting the gym leaders themselves, I think. So Sabrina leads off with Espeon, which does go for accuracy strats, and we are currently still paralyzed. I did not heal my paralysis, so Frustration is missing a bunch of times. Oh, this is terrible. We're gonna run out of PP perhaps. Still, once we actually managed to hit Mr. Mime, we did decent damage only to get knocked out because of that mistake. Still, all we need to do is actually just remove our paralysis, and this should be an easy fight. Without paralysis, we outspeed Espeon and one-shot it. We do the same to Mr. Mime, and of course Alakazam stands no chance against Frustration in that case. And with that done, I'm simply going to run over to Celadon and take on Erica. We'll grab the leftovers just in case, but honestly, I'm not sure I want them because there are a lot of these fights where I want to intentionally take a little bit of damage at the end so that I can heal with my energy root. What I will do is use the PP ups that I'm gaining in this section of the game on Frustration just so that we have more PP and need fewer trips back to the Pokemon Center. And after using the gym trainers in Erica's gym just to manipulate our friendship back down to 0, we can take on Erica herself. So of course she leads off with Tangela. I'm just going to go for Frustration and get the easy one-hit KO. Jumpluff is out next, another easy one-hitter. Victory Bell, no chance whatsoever, and that means Blossom also isn't going to do anything here. It's just a one-hitter as we get to level 61. And with Erica going down, I'm just going to do some quick fetch quests, and then we'll make our way to Misty. Now, I don't expect Misty to be too terribly difficult here, but let's just see how she actually goes. She, of course, leads off with the Golduck. We're just going to go Frustration and get an easy one-hit KO. Quagsire's out next. It's pretty bulky, but it does go down in 1. Next, Lapras. We go Frustration. It just barely hangs on, but we knock it out in 2 hits, and that brings Starmie, who just can't stand up to the pressure, and Frustration is enough to get through Misty. So now we just pick up the expansion card and we are ready to make our way to Brock, who arguably is one of the tougher gym leaders in this section of the game, but honestly, I'm not too worried about him. I think rest strats at the very least will be enough. Of course, we have to take on Lightyear's boy first, and I'm just going to let him damage me once, just so that I can go ahead and use my energy root in order to get my friendship to 0. And with that, we are ready for the gym leader himself. Let's see how Brocky boy goes. So he leads off with Graveler. We use Frustration. This is going to be a 2-hit KO. Earthquake did decent damage, but not that much, and we easily knock him out. Rhyhorn is out next. We're simply going to go for the Frustration and get a nice 2-hitter on that Pokemon. Amistar, fairly bulky, but we get a nice flinch from the King's Rock, allowing us to knock it out in 3 hits while only taking 1 spike cannon. Onix comes out. This Pokemon, of course, doesn't have great HP. It goes Sandstorm, so he is getting some chip damage and he heals up there. So we may actually need to heal up on this Pokemon. So I'm just going to go ahead and go for the rest right here because it's not like he has a high enough attack stat to really make me scared. And by recovering some HP, hopefully Sandstorm also slowly peters out and we can knock that one out. Finally, we've got the last Kabutops. I'm going to give it 1 Leer. It goes for Surf, which didn't do that much. And let's just see what the Frustration does. It nearly gets the 1-hitter. Fortunately, we survive the Sandstorm with 3 HP and knock his Pokemon out. So Brock actually fairly close, but we do manage to get the victory with our Kangaskhan. Honestly, it must be pretty frustrating for him to see a normal type Pokemon come in, only spamming a normal type move, and yet still manage to beat him. And it's frustrating for me to run into Beedrill Boy here, but fortunately this is going to be a nice easy victory. We simply spam the Frustration on all of his Pokemon and simply destroy them. And for now, of course, we're just passing through Viridian City. We'll make our way on down to Pallet Town and then down to Blaine. We can, of course, pop in and just say hi to Professor Oak and just show him the fact that we have a Pokemon that absolutely hates us. You, the guy who told us that we would be a good Pokemon trainer. Turns out everything he said about love and respect and friendship in the original games, completely wrong. We're just throwing that all aside and destroying the game with frustration. So we blast off his grandson, and now let's make our way to Blaney Boy himself. So Blaine leads off with Mag Cargo, which is simply a 2-hit KO, but he does curse at us, so it's actually going to take 3 hits. We don't really mind the Flamethrower, that's just going to let us use an energy root. Now he sends out Magmar, which is an easy 1-hit KO. We get to level 64 as Rapidash comes out, and yet again, 1-hitter, never in question. Blaine just doesn't have the power to match up with Frustration. So now let's just go fight the worst ninja in history, and then make our way back to Blue for an actual challenge. In spite of the fact that we walked past like 3 of Janine's doppelgangers, none of them want to fight us because they know that the gym leader is trash. And so we just go Frustration on the Crobat, more Frustration on the Weezing. She sends out more Weezing, which we're just going to use more Frustration on. Ariados is just a trash Pokemon anyway. And finally Venomoth. It is a dragon type, but it takes super effective damage from everything. Clearly, we just win. So with 7 gym badges down, the only thing to do is to run back to Viridian City where Blue is waiting in his like Lego gym. Clearly, he got rid of everything Giovanni had in here. He downsized. He just replaced it all with Legos. Gotta respect it, but I don't think he stands a chance against us. Let's just see. So Blue leads off with Pidgeot. We're gonna go Frustration, and it is not a 1-hitter. This is a 2-hit KO as he goes Wing Attack, but we knock it out on the next turn. Alakazam is out next. We outspeed in 1 shot there. Next is the Pokemon that I'm actually a little bit worried about, this Rhydon. Of course, it has massive defense and a good typing against us, so let's just see what we do with Frustration first. We did 46 damage, so this is going to be a 5-hit KO depending on ranges here. So I think it's worth a Leer, and then after the Leer, we have to see how much damage we manage to do. I think this is going to be a 3-hitter, and he's still got the Sandstorm on. And unfortunately, we don't manage to get the range and we go down. So clearly what we need to do is use 1 Leer there and then go into the Frustrations, and then we should get a 3-hit KO. So back again to that Rhydon, we're going to go Leer once. He goes Sandstorm, which is fine. We kind of want a flinch as well. Earthquake is going to do massive damage to us. Here instead we get a critical hit though, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out, and Gyarados is out next. We're not too worried about anything that Gyarados can do. We've already seen Hyper Beams and Hydro Pumps before, so I'm going to use this opportunity to heal. He goes for the Hyper Beam, and now he has to, of course, recharge. The problem is that he got a critical hit, so he managed to knock us out in 2. So Blue is actually looking kind of legitimately hard, and I think this fight comes down to flinch luck. So this time we're back to the Gyarados. It misses its attack. He goes for a full restore, but that allows us to simply knock him out. Exeggutor's out next. Of course, it knows Sunny Day, Solar Beam. Leech Seed, and Egg Bomb. I think this is a good spot to heal up though, because at least the Solar Beam's gonna take 2 turns. So while it does decent damage, it does less than half. We get a Wake Up. Frustration does very good damage to him, and we can knock him out in 2 hits. So now Arcanine, Flamethrower, Extreme Speed, Swift, and Roar. It seems like another rest spot to me. Flamethrower is gonna do a lot of damage, but I think we're still gonna be able to survive. Still, it's pretty close, and then Extreme Speed knocks us out. So this could be a spot where Leftovers actually makes sense, because we're already taking a lot of damage, and just getting that little bit of HP back over and over again, even while we're resting, could be the difference between winning and losing this fight. So here we'll go Frustration again. Pidgeot Mirror moves Frustration, but we get a little HP back. Next Alakazam, we're just going to one-shot it, and that's going to bring us back to full health, I believe, on this Rhydon. So now we can go for the Leer. Obviously, we cannot get flinches because we don't have the King's Rock on anymore, but we are at least healing back some of that chip damage. So now I am going to rest in order to get HP back, and let's just see how we do while we're asleep with the Leftovers slightly healing us. We just managed to survive and knock out the Rhydon. That brings us to the Gyarados, where once again we're gonna sleep to recover. He goes Hydro Pump, which doesn't do that much fortunately, and then Rain Dance. So he's trying to power up his Hydro Pump. Still, we get to wake up and get the 2-hit KO range as he misses a Hydro Pump there. Exeggutor is out next, but we have much better health on this Pokemon. So he does Leech Seed, but it's going to be a 2-hit KO there. That brings out Arcanine yet again. We go for the Frustration, do over half. Flamethrower does decent damage, but we can knock it out on the next turn. So Leftovers is the solution for blue. Of course, that's going to enable us to use Energy Root in order to recover and reduce our friendship. And just like that, we have made it to red. Still, we have a little bit of friendship, so I'm going to take one battle just to be able to reduce my friendship again, because red will automatically increase our friendship at the start of the battle. So I want to make sure that we have a situation where ideally we have as much opportunity to damage him with our frustration as possible. So here, taking that one battle gets us to level 66, and we can use the Energy Root in order to heal up. And just like that, we are ready to make our way to Mount Silver and the final showdown with Red. And so now, as we stand right next to the ultimate boss of the game, we have 10 rare candies in the bag. We also have Energy Root, but we've already reduced our friendship basically as low as it can go. So now it's just a question of whether or not we can actually beat Red in this battle. We've got a King's Rock if we want to go for some flinch strats. I'm going to go in with the Leftovers first, because maybe that is the strategy the same as blue. Let's just see. So first up, of course, he's got Pikachu, which is faster than us, and it goes Charm. That's terrible, because that's going to reduce the damage of our frustration quite a bit. Not much we can do in that situation. Out comes the Espeon. It goes for Psychic, which does massive damage, and we're yet again slower than this Pokemon. So we need at least 184 speed to outspeed these opponents. So I'm simply going to start adding on rare candies until I get to 184 speed. And here at level 74, we are actually going to be faster than everything. We still have 2 rare candies in the bag, but let's just see, with the speed advantage, are we able to now win? Against the Pikachu, Frustration is an easy one-hitter. Espeon comes out next, and this Pokemon is going to be a 2-hit KO as it hits us with Psychic. Still, we managed to knock that one out, getting to Snorlax, and now we just have to see how we do on this Pokemon. Our Frustration did 134 damage, so it's a 3-hit KO on this Pokemon, and we get paralyzed by a Body Slam. So I think we just have to rest here, hoping to recover enough HP and hopefully not get knocked out by this Snorlax. Of course, Leftovers are helping by giving us a little HP back, and as long as he doesn't paralyze us there, we are able to knock that Pokemon out. Venusaur is out next. Basically, I think this Pokemon has to go Sunny Day or Solar Beam here. If it goes Solar Beam, we rest. If it goes Sunny Day, then still I think we rest, because he's just going to follow Solar Beam up next. But let's just see what the Frustration does. so slightly less than half, so I'm going to rest up right here in order to get some of my HP back. He goes for the Solar Beam. Still, it's going to take him 2 turns if he wants to use that move. Now he goes Sunny Day, and obviously now he can just use Solar Beam without a charging turn, and he gets a critical hit to one-shot us. We can see that we didn't quite do half, so this might be a situation where the extra 2 levels does make an impact, so let's simply add on 2 more levels and see if we can get it to go. This time Espeon uses Reflect, which is a really bad result for us, so I'm gonna have to go for a couple of Leers, I think, on the Snorlax. He goes Amnesia, fortunately, which is a good result for us. And then Body Slam, we survive, and we knock him out on the next turn as Reflect fades. So we're to the Venusaur on green health, and here it's still going to be a 3-hitter from the looks of things, but we should be able to get the range. In fact, a crit does knock it out in 2. So we've made it to Charizard. The sun is out, so it's going to do extra damage with its fire-type moves, and we get burned. That is a terrible result. So now we have no choice. We simply have to rest and pray, hoping that the sun will subside. Unfortunately, Flamethrower is too much, and we simply go down. So here I'm actually going to rest against the Venusaur while the sun is out. I'm hoping that we can get the sunlight to go away before we go to the Charizard. I'm not sure if it's possible though. Unfortunately, he's just going to be able to knock us out before we get the chance. Now, one other thing worth noting is that we came in at basically 0 friendship, and now we're all the way up to 55 friendship. So the only thing that we can really do is fight a Pokemon and hope then that based on the fact that we fought that Pokemon and use an energy root, that we're able to get our friendship back in check. Fortunately, we still have like 50 energy root in the bag, so we can get our friendship back down as long as we take damage from these opponents. So now we've gotten our friendship back in check, but I also think we need a better setup against Red if we're actually going to win. And the most logical TM that we have in our bag right now is Sleep Talk. The whole idea is that we can rest and then Sleep Talk to still have a chance to damage our opponents, or to heal up more with another rest, or to use Leer to lower their defense so that when we do wake up, we can then knock them out with our frustration. So I'm going to forget Foresight because it's basically a useless move at this point. Let's put on Sleep Talk and see how this strategy goes. So of course, Frustration is just going to destroy the first Pikachu, no problem there. And it's basically going to be the same situation on the Espeon. Yes, we get a Psychic, but it doesn't really do that much, and we knock it out nice and quick. Snorlax is out next. We can do over half with our Frustration at this point because we now have a much stronger Frustration with our lower friendship. Still, we don't quite get the 2-hit KO. It takes 3 hits to knock that Pokemon out. Venusaur is out next. We do over half here though, so as he charges up the Solar Beam, he simply goes down. There's no Sunny Day on his Charizard comes out. So here, yet again, we do over half. Flamethrower does a lot, but we can knock it out, and that brings us to the final Blastoise. I'm going for the Frustration. It does slightly less than half, and we need to survive 2 more turns if we're going to get through. The Surf hits and knocks us out with him all the way down to 8 HP remaining. So clearly, this looks reasonable. Let's just see if we can actually get it to go. This time we critical hit the Espeon, so we didn't even take any damage there. And the Snorlax still is a 3-hitter, but it manages to land the Body Slam and get the Paralysis. In that case, I think the strategy is to rest ourselves just like he's rested with his Snorlax. Unfortunately, Snore is flinching us and we're fully paralyzed. Finally, we managed to go to sleep, and now we can go into our Sleep Talk strat. Now, his critical hit Body Slam did so much damage to us. We managed to Leer while we were asleep, but then we woke up and we simply couldn't knock him out. A few attempts later, we're back to Snorlax again on full health. We need a good roll to get a 2-hit KO there, but we do manage to get it as he just used Amnesia. Venusaur yet again just goes to charge up for a Solar Beam, so we knock it out. Charizard is out next as we get to level 77, so we're at the same level as our opponent, and 2 Frustrations knocks that Pokemon out. That brings us to the final Blastoise, where basically we need to manage to knock this Pokemon out in 3 hits. It goes Rain Dance, and now I think we've got it, because Surf is not going to be enough without a crit, and that means that we have finally defeated Red 2 hours, 41 minutes to get the whole thing done. I was using some speed ups there on some of the grindy parts and overworld parts that weren't really super important, but still, it turns out that frustration as your only damage dealing move is a possible solo run. You do have to have access to foresight to make it go. That does technically leave a few Pokemon available to try this challenge. Of course, we could have done this with like a Noctowl, we could have done this with a Venomoth, but at least in the best case scenario with our Kangaskhan, we managed to get it to go. And interestingly enough, Leer is a major part of the entire strategy for this challenge because you need to be able to lower your opponent's defense in key spots in order to get ranges. In my previous run that I didn't film, I actually ended up still just sticking with the King's Rock at the end in order to get the victory with some flinches, but the whole issue just comes down to making sure that you actually keep your friendship, and just like that, Kangaskhan just can't, but she is the champion. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that one. If there's any other kind of interesting move that you want me to test out in a full game challenge, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, keep your eyes peeled for the next episode of the Minimum Battles series. I will see you then later.